How is psychological conflict explored through the short film form? A deeper look into Disney Pixar's inner workings, 2016. Short films have been implemented at the start of many Pixar films as a way of setting the mood for the upcoming film. They also give young directors and producers a chance to experiment new techniques and explore their individual creative awareness. These shorts are normally child-friendly and have a deeper meaning to what is shown. One of these morals is how a person's inner conflict is shown visually. Pixar has created many shorts that follow the same brief. To name a few, La Luna, 2011, where a young boy must choose between two of his superiors, and Piper, 2016, a small bird must overcome his fears of the ocean to begin his journey as a member of the flock. Inner Workings, directed by Leonardo Matsuda, depicts a man, Paul, struggling to find a balance between the boring and fun sides of life. The short will show how he discovers himself after he battles the inner conflict between his head and his heart. Inner Workings is a perfect example of showing how a person's psychological conflict can deeply impact their lives and inevitably cause serious problems such as depression, but also how a person can overcome these problems simply by trying and experiencing new things. Inner Workings takes a generic model of a human being and gives each part its own mind. As a result, each part of the body is represented in its own way. Matsuda took this approach to demonstrate how a person deals with the inner conflict of themselves. By showing the audience this in such a simplistic way allows young people to engage and understand in what is going on. In his book, Understanding Animation, Paul Wells states, developmental animation operates as a mode of expression combining or selecting elements of both approaches. Here, Wells is talking about how experimental styles that Matsuda integrated into the short. By giving the film a unique style of approach and looking at it will engage the audience. As each part of the body has its own mindset, we can start to see immediately how the brain controls the rest of the body. On Paul's walk to work, we can see each part of the body wanting to experience enjoyments that he normally would not. One of these in particular would be when he goes to try on some sunglasses. Looking more closely at the situation, Paul shows signs of mild anxiety, which is quite a common occurrence, and proceeds to show that even the smallest enjoyment could lead to death. In this scene, we understand that Paul is struggling mentally and is having many doubts, which is unhealthy for the body and can damage a person's state of mind. In their book, Anxiety and Stress Management, Trevor J. Prowler and Simon J. Enright wrote, different people will perceive different events as threatening and stressful. Their perception will depend on their past experiences, knowledge, attributes, beliefs, and values. From this, we can suggest that Paul has had previous experiences that may have turned out to be more of an embarrassment and worse. This is shown in the short, but from the way that Matsuda presented the situation, it looks to be quite distressing for him. At this point, Paul feels as though everything will go wrong, and his head dictates that he should just go to work and follow the same pattern as everyone else in the building. Another factor that plays a key role in the short is the absence of dialogue. Matsuda chooses not to implement dialogue in the film as a way of allowing the audience to depict themselves what each character is saying. It also helps the understanding of the body parts and gives them a more realistic tone. Not having dialogue also gives the body parts a chance to become their own character. Hitchcock sums up nicely in Raskin's 5 parameters. It is essential to separate clearly the dialogue from the visual elements, and whenever possible to rely more on the visual than the dialogue. What is said here perfectly fits with Inner Workings. The visuals used are enough to demonstrate to the audience that Paul is going through a rough time, and that the conflict within himself can have a profound impact on his life. At this point in the short, we understand Paul's state of mind and that his head has full control over his life. However, throughout the film we notice that his heart is trying to explore new and exciting things, but is denied by the brain. This is the psychological conflict at its peak. Paul's head was so distracted by its own safety and self-assurance that he became depressed. His head begins to picture Paul's life in the future and realizes that without making drastic changes, he will end up in the same place that his head did not want to be in the first place. From this, Paul's head now sees that if everything will end up the same way, why not enjoy the things in life while he still can? This is the fundamental turning point in a person's inner conflict, winning the battle between your head and your heart, and finding an equilibrium that balances life's enjoyments. After this deep analysis and realizing that his brain cannot live by himself, he decides to let his heart lead the way. After this pinnacle moment, Paul's life changes forever. His brain begins to understand that trying new things is a good thing and allows his heart to decide what to do. With Paul now experiencing new things, the short itself begins to change its tone. One of these changes is the music. During the film, the score sounds to be quite robotic. At times, in which his heart wants to lead, the music is upbeat and jubilant. This upbeat music symbolizes Paul's happiness, not just for him, but also subconsciously for the audience as well. This scene in particular supports this idea. As he rushes towards the ocean, we can see his head still having some doubts about his heart's choices. But then, as the ocean washes Paul away, it also does the same to Paul's anxiety. From this point on, the brain has full confidence in the heart, and shows that the psychological conflict inside Paul has gone. As the short begins to end, our understanding of Paul's mindset has drastically changed since the beginning of the film. Knowing that Paul was struggling internally, it is clear to see that even though his brain controls the body, if the heart is not content with what is happening, and continues to happen, the body cannot function properly. However, the short shows that even if the inner conflict is great within a person, they can and should try their best to fight it.